Welcome back to the Secret Sauce Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Summers. I'm here with my co-host, Sierra Romero, as always, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever play the game. On the episode today, we also have a softballer, former LSU player, first player in history to win a Rawlings Gold Glove as a female, and currently MLB Network TV host. Take it away, Sierra.
So with your career at LSU, what would you say was probably the turning point in your career when everything really took off? I'm sure now you're probably like, dang, I wish I was there for NIL and everything else, because you probably would have made a nice little penny there. But what do you think was the moment that everything changed for you? What year was that?
Yeah, I mean, NIL, I feel like we would have been rolling in dough.
Yep.
But, hey. But I feel like probably the biggest turning year for me at LSU was probably my sophomore year. I think coming in as freshmen, we all have this mentality of we're God's gift to the world, like we're the best. And so I always had this intention, or I thought that I for sure was going to come in and just be the starter and rule it. And it took me time to really realize what it is I needed to do in order to play at the level of where everybody's good, right? Being on the team, my travel ball team, I'm the best one or one of the best ones. Now I'm on a team where everybody was the best one on their team, and I'm going to be facing teams with people where they were also the best on their team. And it took a little bit to transition into that. And then once I kind of realized what it was that I needed to do, the words of my dad really stuck with me moving from my freshman year to my sophomore year, which was, there's always someone better. Mm-hmm. And with that mentality of thinking there's always someone better, I hated that. It drove me to going to the cages early in the morning, late at night. And I think at LSU, I was very much known for being at the cages 24 hours. People always say, Coach Trina would say, whenever she would drive by, she would see my car. A lot of my teammates would say the same thing. And so I think that from that turning point of realizing I didn't want anyone to be working harder than me. At the end of the day, if you're better than me, cool, but you cannot say that you worked harder than me. That was one thing that I really was very proud about, and I think that that's what really was the biggest turning point for me in my career from freshman year to sophomore year. My sophomore year is when I was an All-American, and so then that was really the turning point of realizing the work I had to put in to be as good as I was, and then doing that work, and then seeing the rewards from it.
So it took that adversity your freshman year to instill that intrinsic motivation once your dad talked to you, or did you have that in high school too?
Well, I was always very motivated, always very someone that was pinpoint towards my goals. Like if I set a goal for myself, I was going to achieve it. There was kind of no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I realized through the adversity of my freshman year that because it wasn't coming as easily as it normally comes to me, or it came to me from the hard work, that I had to double down. But also I had to double down not just on the physicality of it, but also on my mentality, right? Of realizing that I can come back from this. And if I didn't do well this game, then I'm going to be able to put in the work and double time to come back in the next. And I think in high school it was very much, I would just work hard. It was a lot easier in high school. And so then when I got to college, because it was harder, having to do that more, I really just set my mind to being able to do that more. But the adversity in college definitely was a big transition for me, not even just as in softball, but as a person, but realizing what it was that I had to do in order to be successful, and understanding that there was no plan B. I kind of had that mentality. And so my plan A was, I'm being All-American, I'm going to be a starter. Now, what is it that I have to do to figure that out, right? Yeah. And I think for so many times, a lot of my career, all of my life, it was, okay, well, if this doesn't happen, then what's my plan B? But there was no plan B. That was it. Yeah. I was going to be a starter, and I was going to be an All-American. And so now, like, heading home on what it was I want to do my plan A, I think that I was able to move around that with the adversity from my freshman year. But without that, I would have been looking at plan Bs all over the place. But now I'm hyper-focused on my plan A, whether it's in softball or beyond.
With the whole plan A idea, I think part of that also comes with being, like, not sure of yourself in a bad way, sure of yourself in, like, a I'm confident way, right? Because if you have a plan B, then you're kind of thinking that you're going to probably fail at that plan A. So I feel like having that plan A and sticking to it, even when things are tough, especially with softball, baseball, like, things get tough. You know, hitting is rough, sometimes defense is rough, throwing, everything. So how did you mentally get there? Because I think a lot of athletes in general, they struggle with getting to that point mentally. Like for me, I know I had to put like my pride aside. Like
Yeah.
I could never just, like I knew I was good, but like you said, like I had to remember that there was always room for improvement.
Yeah.
And even though sometimes it was hard to be like, hey, I'm really good, I don't need to do that much, like I also had to be like, no, like if you don't keep working, like
Yeah.
this girl's gonna pass you up, this girl's gonna pass you
Yeah.
up. So like for me, it was like, like you said, I didn't want someone else to be better than me. So I had to put that pride aside of, hey, Sierra, like you suck at hitting the outside pitch right now. You should probably work on it.
Yeah.
Like, don't just think it's going to come to you. Like, don't just think you're going to figure it out because you're good. Like, you got to work on it. What do you think that was for you?
Yeah, man, I think it was probably, I want to say it was probably the day we had these trainings, and we had individuals, essentially is what it was. And so it was only a couple of us at a time. And I made this diving catch going backwards on this play. And Coach Serena and Coach Dobson were both just like wowed by this. And before that, right, I was in my head a lot. I didn't feel as confident as I normally did. I mean, that was like initially me coming in my freshman year and realizing, wow, everyone's good, and I have to figure out how to be better than what I am right now. And then after I made that diving play, and everyone was like, wow, you know, I felt like AJ again. I was like, yeah, this is what I do. This is who I am. And so all my thoughts, I mean, before that, I had thoughts of like, man, maybe I should transfer. Maybe this isn't the place for me, right? All the things when you aren't initially where you felt like you were going to be, right? So now I'm thinking of what is my plan B before that, right? And then I made that play, and it kind of was like it just snapped me back into place of this is who I am. I allowed so many outside sources to pull me away from who I am, what I'm able to do, and made me think of a plan B versus just focusing on what it is I am good at. Focusing on what it is I need to get better at. Instead of worrying about, oh, well, I have to be better than this person, or I have to be better than that person, or I have to do this. No, AJ, what do you have to do? How are you going to get better? And that became my plan A. Now today, what am I working on for plan A? What here am I doing for plan A? Keep moving in that direction. So it was kind of just a snapping moment of me remembering who I was and what I'm capable of, and starting to focus on how I'm going to get better, not how I'm going to be better than these other people. And then when I realized that, and that became my plan A, that was when I got better. And because I was so hyper-focused on myself, me getting better for myself ended up me being better than other people without trying, which initially I was trying to be better than other people. If that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's very interesting because it's that switch that you turn on. A lot of the girls that I have dealt with in here just keep going down that road. So say they do go to their big universities, you know, whether it's Florida State, whatever it may be, they show up freshman year, right? Like you were saying, you were the hot shit in high school, you show up, you get that rude awakening, and then you stay down that path. You only get one chance to make a first impression sometimes with these coaches. So say, hey, your first day of individuals, you go out there, shoot, you drop a fly ball. And then from there, you just keep heading down that path because now it's like coach is like, oh, shoot, drop that one ball. That's your first impression. It's like, oh, shoot, how do you deal with that type of adversity and learn to flip the switch like you did? And that's why you made it as far as you did. And that's why you were as good as you were because you were able to, you had the adversity, but you were able to get out of it. So that's something like we need to figure out how to teach, you know, the girls within our app, the girls that come and train in here. Is that something you can teach? You said your dad had, you know, a big influence on you, what he was saying to you. But then it ultimately came down to, from what I'm hearing, is the work that you were putting in. You were just relying on that work that you were putting in. So maybe that's a factor, like get these girls like, hey, you got to make sure you're crossing all your I's and T's so you can fall back on that work, then have the confidence to maybe, hey, catch that next fly ball.
I think one thing she said that was really interesting is like she was always able to fall back on her work and like everything that she did. I think anybody who's putting in consistent work like you should in our sport, you'll know that when you're putting in consistent work when nobody's watching, you still fail, you still mess up, but nobody's watching. So to you, it's like, it doesn't really matter. But then when you fail and someone is watching and it's someone important like your coach and it is a first impression, I think that if you are consistently working, you'll know, okay, I just messed up that one time. That's not going to happen again for another 20 balls, right? Because it's inevitable. You're going to mess up. And the coaches know that. But it's that mental side of not letting yourself spiral because we can all easily spiral at any point. I strike out 2 times in a row. I could easily spiral and strike out a third and it'd be the ugliest strikeout ever. But it's if I allow myself to get there, right? And I don't remember who I I am kind of thing. But I think the thing that she said that was really cool was, you kind of mentioned it was almost like reassurance, like them kind of being like, oh, wow, like that play was amazing. Sometimes like a player might need that. And I think that's something that's important for teammates to know, coaches to know. Like if you feel like one of your athletes that's usually like on point with their confidence is off a little bit, usually those athletes that have that confidence and are always performing, they're not used to getting reassurance.
Yeah.
I'm not used to getting reassurance. Like when I hear somebody compliment me on the field, like I'm like a little kid. I kind of feel really good because I'm always doing that for other people, but I don't feel like I get that sometimes. And so when I do, I'm like, ooh, like, but it kind of reminds myself of who I am. Not that I forgot, but it's just nice to hear, right? But at the same side, like same token, you don't want to rely on that to perform. Like you still want to be mentally tough enough to know who you are. But I do think that that reassurance does go a long way because it can easily snap you back. But it could be someone else telling you that, or it can be you reminding yourself every single day, like, hey, I'm good. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to be, especially in this sport, softball or baseball, you have to be your own biggest fan. Like that's the only way to achieve what you want to achieve because, as you said, you're not always going to get the applause that you want. Even when you are doing well, I mean, there's people that your teammates are your competitors at the end of the day. Like I'm competing for this spot against you, you, and you. And so there's going to be times in which that applause has to come from in the house. And but I do agree, like it's like the strong friend. Like sometimes people don't check on the strong friend, right? Like when you're able to give that reassurance. Because Sierra, I think you're known also for your confidence. Like when I see Sierra playing, I'm like, oh shoot, here we go. What's about to happen? You know what I mean? And it's all about how her approach and how she carries herself. And so, but because of that, I think a lot of people will be like, oh, well, Sierra knows she's good, right? So you don't feel like you need to be like, or like if you don't do well, people are like, well, she knows she's good. Like she's going to come back. We don't need to say it. And so I agree with that, you know, being able just that one time, be like, you know, you look really good today. It's like, dang, thank you. I felt good today, you know? But, I think when it comes to confidence, the confidence is the same. We talked about failure and how, falling back on the work. I also feel like that's the physical part of it, but confidence I feel like it's like working out a muscle. The same way you have to work out a muscle in the gym, right, in order for it to get bigger, in order to maintain it, you have to work out your confidence that same way. So whether you're in the mirror every morning with an affirmation of saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do today, or whenever you make a bad play or strike out, it's always like, okay, that's fine. She got me once, but she didn't get me twice, right? And then you come up again, okay, if you get out again, you got me twice, but no one's ever got me a third time, right? And like you just keep pushing until it's gonna hit, where it's like, all right, yep, you ain't get me a fifth, right? Or you ain't get me a 20th. I don't care. You ain't get me a 20th time.
That's like me with Monica Abbott.
Yeah. Right. We all have that one picture where it's like, got a hit from her today. I got a hit today. Like you feeling good from that one. You could have struck out 30 times in a row against this one person, but once you get that 31st. Can't nobody tell you nothing.
I got a bump for hit off her.
Right?
I was like, yep, that's all right. I'm better than you. Bump
Period,
for hit.
Monica. And so I think it's the same thing with confidence every day. You just have to work it out the same way you work on a drill to hit the outside pitch, the same way you work in the gym to be stronger. Your mentality has to be worked that same exact way.
I think it's cool to like acknowledge, like I'll tell people over and over again because they're always like, who's the toughest pitcher you ever faced? I'm like, Monica, I couldn't hit her. Anything I pieced was caught, so doesn't count. Even though I was like, okay, great, like I thought I got a good piece of it, but then the one hit I got off her was a bump for hit. And I remember when I got that bump for hit, I acted like I just won the game. Like I was and she was probably like, really? Like I just struck you out without you even looking at the ball the last at bat. But it's like, I just feel like it's one of those things where, again, putting the pride aside, but knowing like, I got to get better at this. Like every single time I'm hitting like off machine and I have it going pretty fast, I envision that I'm competing against Monica because she's by far like the most fierce pitcher I've ever faced on the mound. Like she's the one and only pitcher that when I stepped in, I was kind of like, all right, let's go. Like this is going to be brutal. This is going to be an interesting day, but like we're going to get after it kind of thing. But I feel like that confidence, if you're able to keep it, like it's so key because for some reason, anytime women hype themselves up, people have a problem with it. But like I wish that girls would still do it. I don't know if it's just kind of like just not caring what people are thinking, but like I know for me, sometimes when I'm hyping myself up, some people might think I'm being cocky, they might think I'm this, I'm that, but I also know that if they know who I am as a person, they know that that's not me. Like me, the softball player, is different than me, the person. Me, the softball player, is someone you don't want to be like not friends with.
Yeah.
But that's the case for everybody. But
I
that's
think
just
that's how it
is.
should be, honestly.
Like, right? But you should be able to have that, but you should keep it. Like, don't be so worried about like not making friends or someone being mad at you. Like, I was like at AU, right? Like, we're on a different team every week. Okay, we're doing live off each other. I think it was against Haley Wagner. I remember this. It was like the last weekend or second to last weekend. Haley Wagner was my old teammate at Michigan. There's always a battle there, just like it was when we were in school.
Yeah.
I didn't want her to beat me, and she wanted to beat me, and I'm like, I'm not gonna let that happen. First at bat, I think she struck me out, and I was like, and this wasn't in a game. This was just practice. Like, this is practice, and I was so pissed. Like, we were supposed to have just one at bat and be done. I went back out on the field, and I started chirping at Haley, and she could tell. And so I was like she threw a pitch and it was right down the middle, and I was like, ooh, like that's gonna get rocked, even though I just struck out.
Yeah.
Like, come on, Sierra, shut up. And so, but I'm like mad, I'm still heated. So I look at Haley and I'm like, I want another at bat if you want to throw again, unless you're tired. And she was like, no, I'll throw to you again. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, dang, I better hit this ball right now, because I'm totally chirping this up. And she knew what I was doing, because we always have that. It's just like, but it's like, it's mutual, right? It's not a disrespectful thing. It's like, I'm trying to make you better, you're trying to make me better. Like, strike me out, and I want to hit a home run off you. And I remember I go up and I hit like a little, I got the ball just enough out front, and it like just kind of fell in between the defense. And I'm still mad about it, but I was like, it's base hit.
Yeah.
It's base hit. You didn't win. I won. Like, and I could tell she just kind of smirked at me, because she's like, okay, like, you won, I won. Like, but it's like that good competitiveness between women that, like, it's okay to have. Like, don't try to be so nice all the time. Like, compete. Like, this is sports. Like, we're not meant to just be buddy and like not win, right?
That's how you make each other better. I mean, I feel like when you see men on a field and or court, right, they look like they are borderline about to brawl almost all the time. And then at the end of the game, you see them dap each other up, because it's like, right now during this game, you're not my friend, you're my enemy. And that's fine. When the game is over, when we clap hands, let's go get a drink after, right? But during the game, but I think the point you made about women not being able to celebrate themselves, it hits so much deeper than just in sports, right? I think women, we're taught to be small, and we're taught to not be loud about our successes, or even the way that we look or the way that we carry ourselves. We're supposed to be in this box until someone else allows us to get out. And so when the women that aren't waiting for the reassurance or aren't waiting for someone's permission to be themselves, that's when people are like, who does she think she is? Or like, what is she doing? Why is she, oh, she's cocky. I don't know. I don't know if I like her. Because she didn't wait for anyone's permission to be who she is. And I would just say, for anyone, women in sports or outside of that, it's so important to be yourself and to be as loud and as proud and as confident as you want to be, because all these other people are waiting for that permission, and they're not living authentically. And when you live authentically in your purpose and in your path, you align. I mean, this is going deeper, it's like more spiritual, but you align with what it is that you are supposed to be doing on this earth. And when you align with that, not only are you happier, but you are succeeding and you are flourishing. And you not only then, but you're also now, unbeknownst to you, giving permission to other people to be the same. There's so many people that are extremely confident. There's so many people, but they're perceived as cocky. But then they watch Sierra play, they're like, no, I'm gonna be like Sierra. Like, forget it, right? The way Sierra's talking on the field, there's so many people that probably mimic you, your mannerisms, everything that you do, right? And because they identify with you and identify with your confidence and who you are. And you gave them that permission by being yourself authentically, right? And so when people are not being themselves, or they're not being authentic, or put themselves in the box, it serves no one, in my opinion. Like, you're not serving yourself to be successful for you, but then those people that want to be just like you, now they're putting themselves in a place to where they can't reach the potential that they initially could have had. And so I just think that it's so important for women to not wait for that permission, to be loud. And regardless of what people are going to say about you, I mean, I don't know, what anyone says negatively about myself or anybody else, at the end of the day, like, you don't know, you're not with me. We're with each other the most amount of time. So you being happy with who you are and what you're doing, what you're producing, is, in my opinion, the most important. And that's what's going to get you the furthest.
That's a them problem.
That's
not
a period.
That's not a you problem.
To sum it up, that's a them problem.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think it's incredible that, you two, just knowing you guys on a personal level, are like two of the most, strongest, independent, confident women out there. Like, you're at the upper echelon of it. So, like, I always use you guys as examples when, trying to train the youth, trying to bring them up through, because you are exactly right. It does look weird in here. There's been instances where, we have a girl hit a PR, and they start, going nuts for each other, right? And then there are guys in the corner, making fun of them. Like, it's only 130 pounds. It's only 120 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Just always trying to compare themselves. But it is a true thing.
It's a weird thing.
So now it makes the girl kind of feel less, lesser.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's incredible that you guys use softball as that platform. Okay, like, we're going to compete. We're going to build that confidence. And now you guys can very easily transfer that over to what else you do in life, like what you're doing now. You look at your phone screen, you have your vision board right on your phone screen every day that you look at.
I actually have a Google a Google search of what my salary is, and it says 30 million.
Yeah.
So that's not what it is right now. But that being on my screensavers, because one day that's actually going to be true.
So
that
now
Wikipedia,
it's like,
whoever wrote that, thank you.
Yeah, but so you guys have both set those goals for yourself on the softball field. You both achieved them. So now you set higher goals like in life, and it's just like a walk in the park. You've done it before. So if we can inspire and get more, of the youth, the younger girls to adapt to this mindset, like, that's going to be everything. And you talk about, like, women being, like, looked at as lesser when they stand up for themselves. Like, if you get all these girls, like, inspiring them through sports first, that's a wrap.
When it comes to your new profession now with the MLB Network, what do you feel like is something that you have maybe not necessarily struggled with, but something that was a transition for you that you've had to work on? Maybe it's a piece of advice that will help this younger generation wanting to be in your shoes and doing what you're doing in a male-dominant workspace.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you've been able to handle that and you've been able to be successful? Because obviously you are.
I feel like, what's so interesting about that is women, just us in general, especially when we're in a male-dominated career or just a male-dominated area in general, we are so hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point where I saw this study, and they talked about how, like, men, if there's like 10 things required to apply for a job, if men have like 4 out of 10, they're like, okay, I can do this, right? I'll apply. Women, if we don't have 10 out of 10 or at least 9 out of 10 of those things, we're like, I'm not qualified. Mm-hmm. I can't do it. Like, if we have 8, right, and the guy that has 4, he's going to get the job just because he applied. And we, even though we are much more qualified, we're much more talented, much more prepared, we don't go for that because we don't feel like because we haven't met all the requirements, or we don't feel like we're there yet, we don't go. And, I struggled in the beginning of feeling like, man, okay, I have 8 out of 10, but I don't know, I gotta get that other 2, right? I need to feel that other 2. And it wasn't until I realized that the same way, I relate everything to sports. I think that's why people like hiring athletes so much, because I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna work for the other 2. And so, but in the beginning, it just really felt like, I just felt like I had so much more to do, right? And then, but I realized I was very talented. I am very talented, and that I'm not gonna let that stop me. Mm-hmm. And so I switched that really quick. So for my first time on camera with the network, I wasn't so much nervous as I wanted to be perfect.
Right.
And it was more so, but I mean, that can hinder you as well, trying to be too perfect at anything. Yeah. And so, I really had to lay back and just say, you are good at what you do, right? Just flow with it. Look back at it, critique what you have to do to get better the same way you would in a game, and then move forward with that. And so my mentality towards being on camera really came from, or it stopped being, I have to be a 10 out of 10 right now, to being, okay, well, I'm a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, even if it's below, right? Now, what do I have to do in order to become better, right? There's always ways to get better, but learning that from sports, right? No matter how good you are at anything, there's always room to get better. You mentioned that earlier. And it's the same thing with being on camera. And so I hate listening to myself talk, but I'll sit through it in order to hear and figure out what it is I need to do to get better. And the same way I would do on the field, what it is I have to get better, even though it's not fun always sitting in the cage and hitting the outside pitch for hours, right? But that's how you have to get better. Same thing with being on camera. It's not always fun sitting and reading lines for hours, but that's what you have to do in order to get better. And so, for me, it was taking myself out of this box of I have to be perfect and moving myself into this position of we're going to work to be the best you, right? Yeah. And you are really good. And plus, you don't want to be like everyone else. I think sometimes people come in like, I want to be like this person. I have to talk and sound like this person. I have to give the opinions the way this person gives their opinions. But the best people that we like enjoy watching on TV, right, are the people that no one else is like, right? We all have faith, whether you like Stephen A. or you like Max Cap or you like whoever, right? It's like, I like them because of this, and no one has the same explanation as to why they like somebody or someone else. And so it's really bringing it up often, but being authentic, being who you are, instead of trying to be like this person or being so perfect like them, be the best me, right? And it's so interesting how, like, no matter what we talk about, it kind of all wraps into that. It goes back to that. Yeah. But I think in every field, whether you're in the youth softball, college softball, pro softball, beyond softball, working to be the best you and not trying to be so much perfect at what you do at that moment, but working to perfect what it is that you want. So I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just looking to perfect. Yeah, if that makes sense.
100%, yeah. Just relying on the work, like you said earlier. You're relying on the work that you put in.
And also the work, but also in who I am, right? And so in allowing myself to be who I am and flourish as that person. And so whether it's the work, of course, on being on camera, but also people enjoy watching me. Why? I don't know, right? There's someone that's not going to like me, right? But there's going to be other people that do. And one of my favorite analogies is like, at the end of the day, you could be the ripest, biggest, juiciest peach in the world, and there's still going to be someone that just does not like peaches, right? But you have to tailor to those individuals that love peaches. That's my audience. And so once you focus on who your audience is, especially as an on-camera person, that's when the comments of the people that don't like you, they just don't bother you anymore. It's like, well, you're not my target audience. Thanks, no thanks, right? You're just focused on what it is that you want to do. And so I think that tailoring yourself in life, on the field, it's important to be who you are, so that's what I would say.
I like that.
The transition.
Be who you are.
Yeah. So for any young athlete or athlete struggling at all to figure out who they are and what they represent and what they stand for, what are maybe 1, 2, 3 bullet points that you might give them for advice on how to do that and to create that action plan?
I would definitely say number 1 would probably be get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's like the cliche we hear all the time, but it's so true. Do something every day that makes you extremely uncomfortable. The more you do things that make you uncomfortable, the more you get comfortable with what it is that you enjoy doing, no matter who it makes uncomfortable, right? I think we're so conscious sometimes of how we're going to be perceived by other people, and it stops us from being who we are or doing what we want to do. And if you do that thing that makes you uncomfortable, and then it allows you to feel comfortable in that space, regardless of who else is uncomfortable, that's for sure allowing you to be authentic and living and discovering and being more of who you are. Because so much of what we stop ourselves from doing is based in the opinions of other people. And if we can get to a place where we no longer care about that, or that's not our top priority at least, then you will for sure be able to live true in your authenticity. And then I think another thing for someone to do that's really trying to discover who it is that they are is just try new things. Do different things that excite you. Follow your passion. Follow your, like the saying, follow your hell yes. If you hear something and it excites you, there's a reason why it excited you. There's a reason why it's something that you became interested in. Follow that. See why that is. And if after 3 days it no longer excites you, okay, well, this was a temporary. I think everything falls in a tree. So whether it's a leaf, a root, or a leaf, a branch, or a root, right? So there's so many things in life that are leaves, where when the wind blows, it flows this way. When the wind blows, it flows that way. It's something we try for a little bit, but then when the season changes, it wilts away and dies, right? It's done, right? It was something for us to experience along our journey of life to grow as people. And then there's branches. This also applies to people. There's people in your life that are like that too. They come in, they web this way, go this way, they're friends for a moment, and then they wilt away and die in a season. Then there's the branches. Branches are tricky because, they're sturdy, they'll stay for a while, and that's something else that you might try, whether it's a sport or it's a career. It's something that you think that you want, that stays for a long time, it sustains you for a little bit, but then, I don't know, a step out and it just breaks, right? Or a hurricane comes and it just falls off. Like, those branches are things that were also there for you to be sturdy, for you to figure out if this is what you liked. Okay, cool, I did like it for a minute, it taught me a little bit, but this really wasn't for me. This isn't aligned with my purpose. And then there's the roots. All right, and those are the people, those are the things that align with who you are, your soul's purpose, and what you're meant to do here on this earth. And once you find your roots, you're not going to find a lot of roots, right? But a tree needs what? 1-2 roots to sustain itself, to be alive. So you just have to find those 2 roots, those 2 people, those 2 things, those 2 hobbies, those 2 habits, whatever it is that really make you feel you're alive and aligning with your purpose. And I feel like you feel it. You feel it when you know something's good for you. And so when you find those roots, that's when you really know what you're doing. But you won't find that unless you allow yourself to have a few trees, break a few branches. That's when you find those roots. So go out and try new things. Find your roots. And then the last thing I would say is just be happy. Like, find what it is. And I mean, I feel like be happy is it's an interesting thing to say, but find what it is that makes you feel good. Right? If there's ever a moment, or find your peace, right? For me, I call the 3 P's. If you're not bringing me peace, prosperity, or paper, I don't have any time for you, right? At the end of the day. And so it's like, find your peace. Follow what it is that's making you happy. If you're in a moment and you're talking to somebody and you just get a weird feeling, that person's probably not for you, right? It's just probably something you need to move on. You're doing something and you're just not enjoying it, and you have this pressure to do it, but you're not happy with it. Find your peace. Get out of that. And so I think when you do these different things, those 3 things that I mentioned, it really allows you to align more with who you are, to figure out who you are. And then when you get to a point when you are doing these things, no matter how much it made you uncomfortable, as you practice every day doing something that made you uncomfortable, when you get to the point where you now have to break away from a branch, it's no longer uncomfortable, and you realize, I'm doing this for me. You stop living for other people, essentially. Stop living for other people, start living for yourself. And that's really when I think you're meant to be.
Dang. That was good.
The
That had
3
me in
Ps.
my, like, the
Long
3
statement,
Ps.
but also
I
just
like
3
that.
Ps.
The
Does not bring
3
you peace,
Ps.
prosperity, or paper.
I'm going to take that
Get
for
out.
my next Instagram caption.
Leave. Yeah. Get.
If you didn't learn something from that podcast, I don't know what you're doing, because I'm ready to run through a wall. Juice is ready to run through a wall. I think we all are. I need to go get a workout in right now. But do something today that makes you uncomfortable. And if you want to be the most elite, get yourself on the 32 Approach app. Test yourself. Get uncomfortable once again. Find your weaknesses. Make them your strengths. Check us out next time on the Secret Sauce Podcast.
Beautiful.
Nice one.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for
Good.
having me, guys.
If you want to get more out of this podcast and become one of the most elite softball players, subscribe to the 32 Approach Softball Academy.